He saw a frail old woman, lost and out of place in his courtroom, an easy target for his disdain. When he roughly grabbed her arm, he had no idea he was assaulting the one person who could end his career instantly. The Honorable Evelyn Hayes, a woman whose 75 years had etched a story of resilience and quiet strength onto her features, moved with a slow, deliberate pace into the echoing halls of the Franklin County Courthouse. Her mission, self-assigned with the tacit approval of the governor, was one of discreet observation. Dressed in a threadbare woolen coat that had seen better decades, a simple, high-necked floral dress beneath it, and a plain, dark headscarf covering most of her sparse, silver-white hair, she was the epitome of unassuming. Her back was noticeably stooped, a common casualty of age, and she leaned lightly on a worn, no-nonsense wooden cane. Her deeply weathered face, full of the vicissitudes of life, held a naturally kind, almost pitiful expression, yet her faded blue eyes, though often downcast in an effort to remain unnoticed, missed nothing. They were the eyes of a former Army JAG colonel, accustomed to dissecting details and discerning truth. Today, however, she was merely an elderly citizen, hoping to blend into the tapestry of daily court life. Courtroom 3, her first stop, was already a low hum of controlled chaos. Lawyers conferred in hushed, urgent tones, defendants shifted nervously on hard wooden benches, and court staff bustled with an air of weary routine. Evelyn settled into a seat in the rearmost public gallery, her old cloth handbag clutched in her lap. She noted the peeling paint on the courtroom walls, the flickering fluorescent light, the harried expression of the young clerk. These were the small details, the atmospheric evidence of a system potentially under strain. Her initial assessment was of a place where efficiency might be sacrificed for expediency, and where the dignity of the common citizen could easily be overlooked. She was here to see if the rumors of systemic discourtesy and procedural irregularities held water. She did not have to wait long. Officer Jack Miller, a man whose beefy frame and perpetually flushed face seemed to radiate impatience, scanned Courtroom 3 with a proprietary air. At 38, he'd been a court officer long enough to develop a cynical edge and a quick temper, particularly towards those he deemed beneath his notice or a waste of his time. His internal biases, though he would have denied them, often flared when faced with individuals who didn't fit his narrow definition of respectable or belonging. His gaze fell upon Evelyn Hayes, an unfamiliar, elderly figure hunched in the back row. Her plain, almost impoverished attire and her pitiful demeanor immediately set off his internal alarms, not for danger, but for nuisance. He classified her instantly, probably a vagrant seeking shelter, a mentally confused individual, or at best, a clueless old woman who'd wandered into the wrong place. He approached her, his heavy boots thudding on the floor, a deliberate announcement of his authority. "Can I help you, Grandma?" he boomed, the term grandma a deliberate piece of condescension. Several nearby court attendees, including a young assistant DA and a couple of bailiffs, glanced over, some with faint smirks, others quickly looking away, a silent testament to Miller's known abrasiveness. Evelyn looked up, her expression one of mild surprise. "No, thank you, officer. I am simply here to observe the proceedings." Her voice, though soft and aged, was clear and articulate. "Observe?" Miller's lips curled into a sneer. "This isn't a picture show, lady. This is a working courtroom. You got business here, or are you just warming a bench?" He leaned over her, his bulk casting a shadow. "If you don't have a case, or you're not a witness, you need to move along. You're taking up space." "I believe, officer," Evelyn began, her tone still remarkably even, "that public courtrooms are, indeed, open to the public for observation, provided one does not cause a disturbance." "Are you telling me my job?" Miller bristled, his face reddening further. He saw her calm as defiance, her articulation as an attempt to be clever. "I know the rules. And the rule is, if I say you're a disturbance, you're a disturbance." He jabbed a thick finger towards the exit. "Now, I asked you nice. Time to go." When Evelyn made no immediate move to stand, instead attempting to clarify her right to be present, Miller's patience, already a finite resource, evaporated. "That's it, old woman. You've had your chance." With a grunt of exasperation, he lunged forward and seized her by her thin, frail upper arm, his fingers biting cruelly into the soft flesh beneath her coat sleeve. "You're coming with me, one way or another." He started to pull her forcefully from the bench. The sudden, rough grip on her arm sent a jolt of pain through Evelyn's shoulder, but years of military discipline and judicial composure held her immediate reaction in check. Officer Miller was strong, his frustration making his hold brutal. He was already tugging her, causing her to lurch awkwardly. Around them, the low hum of the courtroom had quieted. Heads were turning. Some faces showed alarm, others a sort of detached curiosity, but critically, no one moved to intervene. The bailiff nearest the door looked pointedly at his shoes. The clerk suddenly found her computer screen fascinating. This silent acquiescence, this easy acceptance of an officer manhandling an elderly woman, was perhaps more damning to Evelyn than Miller's thuggery. It was the very systemic rot she was here to investigate. Just as Miller was about to drag her fully into the aisle, Evelyn Hayes did something unexpected. She stopped resisting the pull. Instead, with a speed and precision that seemed utterly incongruous with her frail appearance, she shifted her weight, planted her worn but sturdy shoe firmly against the leg of the bench, and used it as a point of leverage. It wasn't an aggressive move, but it was enough to momentarily halt Miller's momentum. "Officer Miller," she stated. Her voice was no longer soft or reedy. It was a new voice, one that sliced through the courtroom air like a finely honed blade, calm, cold, and imbued with an absolute, unquestionable authority. It was the voice of command she had used as a colonel in the JAG Corps, the voice of judgment she had wielded from the bench for decades. "You will release my arm. This instant." The sudden transformation in her demeanor was so profound that Miller actually faltered. He stared down at the small, stooped woman, a flicker of genuine confusion, then something akin to unease, replacing the aggressive certainty in his eyes. "But old habits died hard." "Or what, Grandma?" he blustered, though his grip had unconsciously loosened a fraction. "You gonna cast a spell on me? Call your AARP buddies." He tried for a laugh, but it came out as a nervous bark. Evelyn did not raise her voice. She did not need to. With her free hand, she reached slowly into her worn cloth handbag, the one clutched in her lap. Miller watched, a new, wary tension in his stance. Was she reaching for a weapon? Unlikely, from this crone. But something was different now. Terribly different. Her hand emerged holding not a weapon, but a slim, unassuming black leather wallet. She flipped it open with a practiced motion. Inside, nestled against dark silk, was a gold badge, intricate and official, gleaming under the courtroom's fluorescent lights. Alongside it, an impeccably crisp identification card bearing her photograph, a younger, sterner Evelyn, but unmistakably her, and a title that made Officer Miller's blood run cold. "Officer Miller," Judge Evelyn Hayes repeated, her voice like Arctic ice, "as I was saying before you so rudely interrupted and assaulted me, I am Judge Evelyn Hayes, retired Superior Court, currently serving as Special Investigator for Judicial Conduct, appointed directly by the Governor's Office. This," she added, tapping the official, gold-sealed document she also produced, "is my letter of commission. And you, officer, are now under formal investigation for assault, battery, and obstruction of a state official in the performance of her duties. Now, I believe you were about to unhand me." The effect of Judge Hayes's words, coupled with the undeniable authority of the badge and the official commission, was like a physical blow to Officer Miller. His face, already pale, turned a ghastly shade of gray. His grip on Evelyn's arm vanished as if she had suddenly become red-hot. He stumbled back a step, his jaw agape, his eyes wide with a terror that was almost comical in its intensity. The entire courtroom, which had been watching with a mixture of apprehension and morbid curiosity, seemed to collectively gasp. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the almost inaudible click as Judge Hayes closed her wallet and returned it to her handbag. The smirks had long since vanished from the faces of the court staff. The bailiff who had been studying his shoes was now staring at Judge Hayes with an expression of pure horror. The young assistant DA looked as if he might faint. They had all been witnesses, not just to an assault, but to a career-ending, potentially institution-shattering act of stupidity by one of their own, against one of the most respected and, when necessary, feared, judicial figures in the state. Judge Hayes rose slowly to her feet. Her stooped posture seemed less pronounced now, or perhaps it was the sudden aura of immense power that radiated from her small frame. "This court," she announced, her voice, though not loud, filled the room, projecting effortless command, "is hereby in recess. All pending matters will be rescheduled." She then turned her gaze, cold and appraising, upon the trembling Officer Miller. "You, officer, will remain here. Do not move. Do not speak to anyone. Await my instructions." Her eyes then swept across the other uniformed officers and court personnel. "I require the immediate presence of Presiding Judge Henderson, the court administrator, and Police Chief Donovan in Judges' Chambers No. 1. Inform them that Judge Evelyn Hayes requests their attendance regarding a matter of utmost urgency and gravity." She paused. "Make that an order." Without another word, she turned and, with her slow, cane-assisted but now incredibly dignified gait, walked towards the private corridor leading to the judge's chambers. The crowd of lawyers, defendants, and onlookers parted before her as if she were royalty, their faces a mixture of shock, awe, and dawning understanding. Officer Miller, left standing alone in the suddenly vast and empty space before the public gallery, began to shake visibly. His bluster, his arrogance, his petty tyranny, all had evaporated, leaving behind a terrified, sweating man who could clearly see the abyss yawning before him. He fumbled for his radio, then seemed to think better of it. He sank onto the nearest bench, his head in his hands, a truly pitiful sight. The hunter had, in the most public and humiliating way imaginable, become the hunted. The arrival of Presiding Judge Henderson, a portly man known for his leisurely pace, and Police Chief Donovan, a stern-faced career cop, was uncharacteristically swift. They were ushered into Chambers 1, their faces etched with anxiety. They found Judge Hayes calmly seated behind the large mahogany desk, a file already open before her. The frail old grandma was gone, replaced by the keen legal mind and an experienced military officer who had seen far worse than Officer Miller and was not easily intimidated. "Gentlemen," Judge Hayes began, her voice devoid of any perceptible emotion, though a close observer might have noted the glint of steel in her faded blue eyes. "Thank you for coming so promptly. I trust you are now aware of the incident that occurred in Courtroom 3 this morning involving myself and one of your officers, a certain Officer Miller." Judge Henderson, a man whose primary concern was usually his golf game and avoiding any controversy that might disturb his comfortable tenure, stammered first. "Your Honor. Judge Hayes, a most regrettable, most unfortunate misunderstanding. I assure you, Officer Miller is ordinarily a competent officer. This is highly uncharacteristic." Police Chief Donovan, more accustomed to damage control, interjected smoothly, "We are already taking this matter extremely seriously, Judge Hayes. Officer Miller has been temporarily relieved of his courtroom duties pending a full internal investigation. We offer our sincerest apologies for any distress this may have caused you." Evelyn Hayes held up a hand, a small, gnarled hand that nevertheless commanded silence. "Chief Donovan, Judge Henderson, let us dispense with the platitudes. What I experienced this morning was not merely distress or a misunderstanding. It was an unprovoked assault, an abuse of authority, and a shocking display of unprofessionalism, all occurring within a public courtroom, in full view of numerous court and law enforcement personnel, none of whom saw fit to intervene." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Officer Miller's actions are, of course, the immediate concern. But my larger concern, gentlemen, is what his actions signify about the prevailing culture within this courthouse and, potentially, your police department." She detailed Miller's aggressive demeanor, his contemptuous language, his unwarranted escalation, and the utter lack of intervention from anyone present. "This was not a rookie making a mistake under pressure," she stated. This was an officer who felt completely empowered to mistreat a citizen, an elderly citizen, I might add, though that should be irrelevant, based on nothing more than her appearance and his own biases. He acted with impunity, because, I can only assume, he has been allowed to act with impunity in the past. Her experience as an Army JAG colonel, where discipline and adherence to protocol were paramount, framed her perspective. She understood hierarchies, but she also understood that power without accountability inevitably led to abuse. What does it say about your training, Chief Donovan, when an officer cannot distinguish between a citizen lawfully observing proceedings and a threat to be forcibly ejected? What does it say about your court's administration, Judge Henderson, when such an incident can unfold without any member of your staff feeling compelled, or perhaps safe enough, to speak up? The two men shifted uncomfortably. They had come expecting to deal with an embarrassed VIP, to offer apologies and assurances. They found themselves facing a forensic examination of their entire operational culture. This is not just about me, Judge Hayes continued, her voice still quiet but unyielding. How many other citizens, perhaps less able to articulate their rights, or lacking the unexpected credentials that I possess, have been subjected to similar or worse treatment by Officer Miller, or others like him? How many have been dismissed, intimidated, or manhandled simply because they didn't look or act the way an officer arbitrarily decided they should? The incident, now reverberating through the courthouse and the local police department via hushed phone calls and urgent internal messages, was rapidly transforming from a personal affront to a systemic crisis. Judge Hayes made it clear, Officer Miller was merely the presenting symptom. The disease was a potential culture of bias, poor training, lax supervision, and a fundamental disrespect for the very public these institutions were sworn to serve. In the days that followed, Judge Evelyn Hayes, operating with the full backing of the governor's office, did not let the matter rest with Officer Miller's suspension. Her initial, discreet observation had, by necessity, transformed into a formal, top-down review of the Franklin County judicial and police presence within the courthouse. Her small, plainly dressed figure became a common, and increasingly dreaded, sight in various departments. She moved with the quiet determination of a seasoned investigator, her kind and pitiful demeanor disarming many into revealing more than they intended, while her sharp legal mind, honed by decades in military and civilian courts, missed no inconsistency, no procedural flaw. Her investigation, supported by a small, hand-picked team from the state capitol, delved into past citizen complaints, training records, disciplinary actions, or lack thereof, and courtroom protocols. They interviewed clerks, bailiffs, lawyers who frequented the court, and even former defendants, piecing together a comprehensive picture. What emerged was a pattern. Officer Miller was indeed a known issue, with numerous informal complaints about his temper and heavy-handedness, all previously downplayed or quietly shelved. But the problem was larger. There was a pervasive lack of ongoing training in de-escalation, cultural sensitivity, even beyond race, extending to age and perceived social status, and dealing with vulnerable individuals. Accountability for misconduct was inconsistent, often influenced by internal politics or an officer's connections. Judge Hayes, drawing on her JAG Corps experience in establishing and enforcing strict codes of conduct, began to formulate a series of robust recommendations. These weren't just punitive, they were foundational. She proposed a complete overhaul of use of force and citizen interaction training for all court security personnel, incorporating reality-based scenarios. She mandated easily accessible, transparent complaint mechanisms for the public, with an independent oversight component. She also pushed for regular, undercover, observations by external assessors to ensure standards were maintained, a direct lesson from her own experience. Regarding Officer Miller, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The courtroom security footage, once located, was damning. Multiple witnesses, now feeling safe to speak, corroborated his aggressive and unprofessional behavior not just on that day, but on previous occasions. His racist cop reputation, while not the direct cause of his assault on the white Judge Hayes, became part of a larger pattern of bias against anyone he perceived as other or lesser. The investigation also revealed he had falsified reports in the past to cover his actions. Judge Hayes ensured the case against him was built meticulously, leaving no room for dismissal on technicalities. She was not seeking vengeance, but an outcome that would serve as an unequivocal message. The public release of Judge Hayes's initial findings and comprehensive reform package sent shockwaves through Franklin County and beyond, prompting similar reviews in neighboring jurisdictions. The detailed report, unsparing in its critique but constructive in its recommendations, left little room for argument. Under intense scrutiny from the state, and with their reputations on the line, Judge Henderson and Police Chief Donovan had no choice but to begin immediate implementation. Officer Miller was formally charged with assault, battery, and official misconduct. He was summarily dismissed from the police force even before his criminal trial concluded. His downfall was swift and public, a stark warning to others. More importantly, the culture within the Franklin County Courthouse began a slow but perceptible shift. New training programs were rolled out. Staff meetings included frank discussions about respect and procedural justice. An anonymous ethics and conduct hotline was established. The sight of Judge Hayes during her follow-up visits, still plainly dressed, still moving with her cane, became a reminder of the new standards. She became a quiet legend, the grandma judge, the undercover colonel, who had single-handedly forced a reckoning. The fears she initially inspired in the staff transformed into a grudging, then genuine, respect for her unwavering commitment to fairness. Months later, as Judge Evelyn Hayes concluded her special assignment in Franklin County, the changes were palpable. The courthouse ran more efficiently, its staff more professional, its atmosphere more respectful of the public it served. Officer Miller was convicted, his law enforcement career over, his name a byword for abuse of power. Judge Hayes never sought accolades. She returned to her quiet retirement, her work done. But the legacy of her intervention endured. She had proven that one individual, armed with courage, integrity, and the authority to demand accountability, could indeed move mountains, or at least, clean out a very Augean stables. Her brief, unassuming presence had reminded everyone that justice requires constant vigilance, and that true authority is not about the uniform you wear or the volume of your voice, but the respect you earn and the fairness you dispense. The frail old grandma had taught a powerful lesson: never, ever, underestimate anyone, for wisdom and strength often reside where least expected, in the quiet dignity of a life lived with honor. What does true accountability look like in public institutions? How can ordinary citizens ensure that power is not abused? Share your perspectives on this story in the comments below. Please, always comment with respect. Subscribe for more true-to-life dramas where justice finds its voice.